A cafe conversation. It's a cafe conversation in the ladies' room. 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 A cafe conversation in the ladies' room.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Cafe Conversations. I am so happy to be here. It's Thursday, and Thursday night is Ladies' Night. I get excited on Ladies' Night because I get together with all my girls and talk about all the things that we didn't talk about last week on the show. So, but I'm happy to have a friend with me today, you know, a new friend from a couple of months ago, but I know we're going to be friends for a long time. Today, joining me is Mayor of Stroudsburg, Tarah Probst.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to see you again, and your place looks wonderful.
Thank
I'm so
you
happy of the
so
things that you're
much.
doing and hearing really wonderful things.
Working so much, being away from home so much, I had to make the office close to home. So, you know, I figured, I was like, well, let me see, what would my living room look like if, you know, I had this as my apartment, you know. But the other thing, too, is that because I always like to get together with, you know, the girls and have lunch and talk, you know, I wanted to be comfortable. You know, I always want everybody to feel like they're at my house. So here it is. I brought my home to everybody.
Well, I love it. I love it. So it looks beautiful. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh, I really appreciate it. And the conversation that we're going to have tonight, I really is one that's sort of dear to my heart. It's one that you actually introduced me to, and ever since we spoke about it, it's been something that actually has sat and resonated with me. It is a conversation that I probably myself should have had because I've had some experience with it in the past, you know, and never really got closure from that situation, you know. And then I met you and we talked a little bit about it, and it was kind of like, wow, wait a minute. This could be something that could be helpful to not only other women but to myself.
Right.
So tonight, okay, in the cafe, we're going to discuss addiction, rehabilitation, and recovery. Okay, and to my surprise, when I met her, Mayor Probst actually works part-time for Brookdale Premier Recovery.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
So they opened their doors August of 2019, and the way that it happened, it's a really crazy story. Because I am obviously the mayor of Stroudsburg Borough, we're the county seat. I work also with county offices, organizations, roundtables on overdose awareness, the mental health awareness, and just knowing what's going on in our community. I was invited to tour Brookdale, and they weren't even open yet. The furniture was still in the wrap, okay?
Oh, wow.
So when I toured it, and you've been to that facility, it's beautiful.
Yes, absolutely.
So I went there in August, or it was July of 2019, and, you know, got the tour, met the people that were working there, from the clinical directors to the CEO. At the time, it sits on, you know, over 100 acres. You've been there. It's a beautiful campus. And I just looked at who is now one of my bosses at Allen, and I said to him, I was like, boy, I don't have time to work full-time being the mayor, but if you need a part-time help, I would love to work here, because this is going to do wonderful things for our community and change
Absolutely.
people's lives.
Absolutely.
And sure enough, I was fortunate enough to be able to get that position, and I'm a regional outreach coordinator.
Okay.
So I am fortunate enough to bring people into Brookdale, basically tour the facility like I did with you, tell them what we do, how we do it, what our staff, you know, works on, the day-to-day routines, and just from the beginning, from when you walk in the door to Brookdale to when you're ready to leave. And it's a really, it's like having a public service job. I absolutely love it, and I've seen it change people's lives. So when we met, you came, you toured.
I did. I had lunch.
You did. We had lunch, and you were so open, and you got a little emotional.
Yeah.
And like it hit some triggers and made you think of some things, and that is, I'm so happy about that because you can see, like, boy, you even said, like, if I should have done things differently.
Right.
Hey,
Absolutely.
there's a million and one things I should have done differently, but it is what it is, and you learn from your experiences, and sometimes those bad experiences is what makes you great
Right.
in other ways. But my hope is that, all of the patients and people that need help that can come through, not just Brookdale, but other services, they just get the help they need because it's real and it's here in Monroe County.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. And it's much needed, and even more so on a general scope, it's needed, but for women, it's needed, generally, I think in a lot of situations, it tend to be a little bit easier for men to sort of get back on their feet after, having to go through whatever situation, any kind of adverse situation. But women tend to suffer more. They lose a lot more. A lot of times that encompasses, their homes, their jobs, their support systems, their children, and then coming home after whatever your situation was, and now trying to recoup all that and get that sense of normalcy back, is really difficult.
yeah, and you really touched on something because even outside of addiction, women in general, sure. I mean, there's some great men out there, and I don't mean, I have 3 older brothers. I have a wonderful husband, so
Gotcha.
I have plenty of wonderful men in my life. But as women, it's what we do. We take it on. We work full time. We come home and we feel we have to feed our family. We have to make sure that, the house is clean. And it's just,
Yeah.
it's in me.
Right.
It's not that I wouldn't have help or anything,
Right.
but the thing is, it's like, no, I'm going to do this. I have to feed my child. I got to make sure my family eats. I have to make sure, I have a dog. I have to vacuum. We take it on. We do it
Yeah.
to ourselves.
Naturally. Naturally.
It's like a natural what we do, right?
Right.
So then you throw something like, addiction, whether you could have started off taking pills for an injury and you're addicted, right? So now you have to do all that. Then you think, I need help. Who's going to feed my family? Who's going to get my kid to school?
Absolutely.
Who's going to make sure that, you can make up a million reasons why you should not go into rehab, right? Even if you could keep your job, because it's against, you can't fire somebody for going into, a rehab.
Right.
That's it's a disease. Employers are not allowed to do that. So fine, say, your job's on hold, but then you're like, who's going to get my kid from the bus at 3:00? Who is going to make sure that they eat right? So we take on all of this.
Absolutely.
And not that some men don't, but for the most part, a man can say, well, that's covered. My wife has it, my girlfriend has it, my mother has it.
Absolutely.
And it's really straining on women.
And which leads into stress. Okay? Which leads to anxiety and sleeping pills and Xanax and something to make us, a little bit more calm or give us a little extra boost to get through the day because there's so much to do.
Yeah.
And we just kind of get addicted and dependent on those things. One of the things I am not sure.
Mine is caffeine. And I'm not kidding. I bet you I drink 8 cups of coffee a day.
Well, I heard that you could actually be addicted to caffeine also.
Well, absolutely.
Caffeine, sugar, things that we normally ingest, salt.
I know.
We normally ingest, become addictive to us.
It truly is. Nobody should drink 8 cups of coffee a day. Nobody. But
I could drink 8 Pepsis a day.
Well, then you do. You basically do. You probably drink more caffeine than me. But it doesn't make it a good thing to do for you. So anyway, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like you said, like, your up with anxiety, you don't sleep well. The first thing you do is you're like, oh, I need the caffeine. I have my coffee. And then 2 o'clock, you're starting to crash a little bit. Oh, I'm going to have more coffee.
Yep.
And it just is that easy. Addiction's it's not hard to become addicted. It's very easy, as a matter of fact. And that is some of the things that, we need to talk about. When people get addicted, it's really not their fault.
Right.
And I think that's something that, even working at Brookdale, I've learned that it's a disease.
Absolutely.
It's not, most people don't wake up in the morning and say, my plan in life is to be addicted to drugs and alcohol because I want to ruin people's lives. I want to ruin my own. I want to ruin relationships. People don't set out for that.
Right.
It happens.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
So anyway, it's just something I really wanted to talk
Yeah,
about.
and I love your passion for it, and that's why I wanted to have you here today. And I'm really looking forward to working with you in the future on Rebirth. But we'll tell you about that later. We'll tell you about that later.
Sounds good.
But my goal today was more so to have a really candid conversation, about addiction and the cycle of addiction and recovery and rehabilitation, simply because there's a lot of stigma around it. It's a lot of embarrassment. Not necessarily only the person who might be going through it, but for the family. That they're a part of, or their support system, or, their children, whatever the case may be. And a lot of people are under the impression that when there is a addiction complication, it's because someone chooses to be addicted. They choose to, I'm going to get high and I'm going to be drunk all the time and I'm just going to not pay my bills and I'm not going to take care of my kids and I'm going to beat my wife or whatever the case may be that happens and when they're in that state. And in many cases, it's not that. Most cases is they can't fight it. Because there's a chemical change, and just a little background history, there's a chemical change that actually happens in the brain when you're using drugs. Remember the commercial with, what is it? This is your brain on drugs with the eggs, and the eggs are frying.
Yeah, in the 1950s, the mouse would rather snort cocaine than eat.
Exactly, and that's
Yeah.
that's quite a few people, who are dealing with, addiction. But are you able to explain a little bit about the difference between substance use disorder and like a full-blown addiction?
I am not a clinical director.
Okay.
I don't have any of the licenses to be able to speak about that.
Okay.
But what I can speak about, and just what you were going back and saying, is that the chemical reaction in your brain. So, and you talked about the stigmatism and the embarrassment.
Right.
If you even go back, even 10 years ago, right? Going into rehab was like, oh, did you hear so-and-so was in rehab, or so-and-so's son is into drugs, or, too bad so-and-so's father is an alcoholic. It was such a stigma, right? Fast forward, sure, it still exists, but I don't think that we know somebody who hasn't been affected by somebody who's been addicted to drugs or alcohol.
Absolutely.
And the more that we are educated and the more that we learn about the disease, the less stigma is going to be on it.
Agreed.
So an example, growing up, my grandfather was a full-blown alcoholic. My grandmother had to raise her kids alone in the 40s and 50s, of course. He died. He looked 100. He died in his mid-60s. He was at the bar from the minute it opened to the minute he went to bed.
Wow.
And I was a kid, and he was always sweet to me, but I was always embarrassed. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's terrible. I mean, I'm going to be 51 years old, and look at the trigger. I can go back in time talking 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and just remember being like, oh my God, there's my pop. You know, how embarrassing. I'm with my friends and he's, you know, walking home wrecked.
Yeah.
You know, and those, they never leave you. You know, I had a brother that died drinking and driving at age 22. There's certain, it does not leave you. And all I can say is that I do believe that the stigmatism on it is less than it was when I was growing up, and even less than I said like 10 years ago. The courthouse, for example, you know, or Monroe County, they do the in conjunction with ESU and all these wonderful partners.
Okay.
We do recovery walks.
Okay.
They light the courthouse green for mental health. I mean, it's important that people realize you need to be educated about it.
Right.
And I think that times are changing now where instead of, oh, did you see so-and-so? It's, oh my gosh, what can we do to help that family? I can't imagine what they're going through.
Right.
And I do feel like it's more like that now than ever before, which I think is extremely important. But one thing I do know, and what I have found from working in the industry, is that there's usually a trauma, some sort of mental health that went undiagnosed.
Absolutely.
And the two kind of are dual.
Yeah.
It's rare that you don't find a dual diagnosis.
And that was one of the things that I was going to say, was that a lot of times you'll find that many people look at what's in front of them, but don't dig deep enough to see what's underneath.
It's like a coping mechanism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and for the most part, if we don't deal with not just the alcohol or the cigarettes or the marijuana or whatever it is, the opium, we have to deal with the mental health issues behind that. And maybe even physical issues, because, you know, people who, you know, maybe going through chemotherapy, who are in pain constantly, who are taking massive amounts of pain medication, you know, and cannot function without it.
Right.
It's an addiction, but they're not really choosing to have to feel that way or
Right.
respond that way. It's not really an option,
Right.
you know, because there isn't much else that's going to help them, you know, for that pain. You know, even a mental health situation, you know, if I have high anxiety and stress, you know, it's going to be very hard for me to manage anything else if I'm always nervous, or if I'm always stressed, if I'm always on 95,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, don't you feel too, since we're having our conversation, right?
Yes.
You and I are around the same age, you know, and
Exactly.
and yeah, 71, baby.
Actually, at 70, I'll be 52 April 10th.
Okay, all right, you got a year on me.
I got you.
Same, but the same age. And I mean, kids, even go back to when you were in school, right?
Right.
I mean, I have a son that is ADHD. I mean, he's going to be 15, and it's absolutely a wonderful child. Does fine in school, but those early years, when you'd be like, sit still, you know, they can't.
Right.
And kids, when we were growing up, weren't diagnosed. You were rambunctious. I'm just giving an example for like ADHD.
Gotcha.
They're rambunctious kids. They don't sit still, you know. And meanwhile, now, not that we can self-diagnose, right? Apples don't fall far from the tree. I got news for you.
Absolutely.
Definitely, I don't sit still. I'm 0 to 100 all day long until I go to bed. And, you know, I'm sitting there trying, when my kid is like, what's wrong with him? He won't sit still, you know. Well, my God, what's wrong with him? He also watches his mother that doesn't sit still.
Right.
And I guess my point is now in today's world, like, oh, okay, I know what his issue is. A professional had said, here's what we can do to help in school, help focus, help all these things. And now at 15, I mean, he's going to be 15. He's wonderful, you know. But how many people do we know that went undiagnosed and really maybe were in, you know, learning disability classes and things, and they really didn't have a learning disability.
Right.
They just didn't have the right help. Where
Absolutely.
and so it's sort of, so now I go back to addiction. How many people do we know that we didn't know their circumstances growing up? Maybe addiction was in their household since the time that they were little, and that's just how it is.
Right.
And now I think we widen the screen and we can look deeper into people with addictions and say, you know what, like, tell me about your life. Like, what was it? And they'll tell you stories that are so normal to them that you could say, wow, that's really, that's not healthy. You were
Right.
you were in
Absolutely.
a very unhealthy environment, and this is not your fault. And, you can really get a person to look within and say, wow, I didn't realize that, you need to break a cycle.
Right.
And we all need to break cycles. I know, I'm just being honest. Everyone in their family has something where you're like, well, I need to break that cycle that's been happening generation to generation. And you do your best to do it. And that's why I feel like in 2022, we're talking about the stigma on it and everything. I really do feel, sure, there are some people that still have it. But for the most part, I think more people are compassionate, understanding, and saying, well, Jesus, this poor person, look what they went through.
Right.
And let's get them not only the help they need for their addiction, but the help they need for the issues they're having, the trauma they suffered for 5 years. I'm talking PTSD.
Yes.
It could be, you just don't know what kids go through growing up, the worries that they have, and there wasn't the outlets then like there are today. And I'm so glad even guidance counselors today in schools, so many more outlets to get kids the help that they need. And hopefully that will prevent those kids from turning to addiction, substance abuse.
Yeah.
So it's a cycle, right?
Especially when it's starting earlier and earlier.
Yes.
And I say it's funny because sometimes I compare addiction to like sexual activity, and simply because boys in their teen years tend to become, they become experimental. Now, their older brothers or their friends or, they're trying marijuana or weed or whatever,
Right.
cigarettes,
Right.
Vaping, whatever you want to call it. They're doing all this stuff. And it makes them feel accepted, part of it. Society is saying, this is what you need to do to be one of the big boys.
Right.
And with girls, girls, well, actually, just as many girls, I do believe now, are doing the same thing, but they also tend to become sexually promiscuous. So it starts to run hand in hand, and then you start this cycle of like, okay, so we're going to use drugs, we're going to drink, we're going to have sex, we're going to have babies we can't take care of, we don't have homes, we don't have jobs, we may not finish school. You got this whole vicious cycle that goes on, and it's like, okay, so where do we even begin to address the issues so we don't even have to handle a problem, but we can prevent one?
There's so many different levels there, right? So we're going to talk about, I want to bring up, the injustices. It's just, I can't say the word.
Systemic. Systemic injustice.
A gun in my mouth. I couldn't get that out. But it is. And again, these kids are growing up today learning about these things from, and when you look at, we could have a whole 5-hour conversation on this, right? But the education level wasn't there, and it's nobody's fault. It was the circumstances that you were in.
Agreed.
And it was definitely generational, and not the fault of sure, you can blame a lot of people for maybe bad parenting and things like that, but go back 50, 60 years when you never had a chance, it pushes. And all I'm saying is that the more education comes in and the more kids are educated and have those outlets, I think the less let's go out and be bad, let's go out and drink, let's go out and do these things, and also the more diverse your friendships are, really is it's a cultural experience, and it's I don't need to do these things. I'm actually happy. I have good friends and a good family. And not that it doesn't happen to the best parents and the best kids, because it does, okay? But I really hope to believe that with all of the things that are coming in place with education for these kids and these parents, and really lifting people up and being able to give, fair chances, you know what I mean?
Right.
Could really, in the next generation, help stop this addiction cycle.
Yeah.
That's just the optimist in me. I really want that to happen. But
I
there's
agree with you.
there is definitely some outliner reasons that are truth, whether people want to believe it or not.
Absolutely.
We know the truth.
Absolutely.
Know? And
I know growing up, so my brother was the one. He was like 6 years older than I. And he was the one that, struggled with addiction. And I mean, to the point, like, he had addiction, and then he had juvenile diabetes on top of that.
oh gosh.
And as a result, I mean, he didn't live past his late 20s, but I was, being 7 years younger than him, many times the one that walked in when he was high, and passed out on the floor. And, crack pipe was still
Traumatic.
lit on the rug, and it was like, you're going to blow up the house and we ain't gonna have nowhere to live, but that's another story. But or coming in the building, and people are like, hey, Charice, your brother's in the hallway.
How about the anxiety that you felt that you probably didn't realize?
Right.
The stress at such a young age.
Exactly.
That you didn't even you just dealt with it. And as you get older, you deal with it then. It's right.
And it took me 40 years to kind of get to a point to be able to look back and say, it wasn't my fault that I couldn't do anything. Technically it wasn't my responsibility, but it wasn't my fault that I walked into a situation that I was not equipped to handle. Coming from old school parenting in the South, what happens in your house stays in your house. Right. So there wasn't a situation of, well, you know what, we need to go get some mental health services and see why this is happening. And let's get some mental health services for, our daughter who keeps coming home to this.
And that's what we're saying. At least, not everywhere, but at least now there's these type of services. And they just weren't, maybe they were there when we were growing up, but we didn't know about them. I mean, and we talked about breaking cycles. Excuse me, my grandmother had a 7th grade education. My mom had an 11th grade education. And all of her kids were, high school and college. And then I have a brother who's a judge right now, and I have a law degree. She wanted us to break that cycle. Education, education, education. And she was a waitress and raised 4 kids,
Right.
And with the education, now us raising kids, me raising kids, is completely different the way I was raised.
Yeah.
I mean, when we were 16 years old, we were considered an adult. I mean, I came and went as I pleased in my home. And my mom was a sweetheart. She was the nicest. She was the best. She always had food for us, and my grandmother and my aunt, we had our little village. But no one really told us what to do.
Right.
Now it's like, to my son, what are you doing? Where are you going? It's like, I'm like, why do I do this? I wasn't raised this way, But I think it's because we're more aware
of what could happen.
Of what could happen and what's out there,
Right, if you don't.
It is crazy, but I do, internally, it's a struggle I have, and I'm just being open and honest as a woman at a cafe chat here.
Yeah.
I beat myself up over my parenting. I question it. And because, you love your children so much.
Absolutely.
And I go back like, this kid has no idea that we didn't get anything that he got, and they don't realize how lucky they have it. When I moved 11 times in 16 years and this,
Yeah.
But it's not his fault. I mean, I'm raising him. He doesn't know any different than the environment that he's in, right? So I can sit here and tell him about my stories, but I can't get mad at him because he asked me for $20 and I'm like, well, I couldn't ask my mom for $20, So then I beat myself up because I always give him this spiel, when I was your age, and I'm like, it's just not fair to do that. And I'm very hard. When I say I'm hard on him, I'm a little more strict than my mom was with me.
Okay.
And now I'm starting to let the strictness kind of move away and let him kind of grow, because you have to
Let
they
them
have
make
to
their
find
own
their way,
mistakes.
right?
Exactly.
And that's hard for me. It's like I just, I worry about him all the time, as a parent probably does with all their kids. But I feel like, God, when I was his age, no, just, hey, call me if you need a ride,
Right.
Like that was it. Like now I'm like, I have him on, where is he at? Like I'll go and pull it up. I have the app. Like, God, we have apps to see where your kids are at. And I think it's
Love
because
it.
we know now all the drug addictions, the suicide rate for teens, the bullying online, that stuff I think is what scares me the most. And now we worry about those things instead of, oh God, I just don't want him to get hit by a car crossing the
Right,
street. Now it's like, oh,
exactly.
so I question my parenting all the time. Am I doing this the right way? I'm not raising him like I was raised, but yet my mom was the best and we're all great kids. I mean, I want to say great kids. I don't mean to say that, but we all not in trouble.
Listen, great is relative to
She
to
gave
what
us a
you
lot of
feel.
rope is what I'm
Yes.
saying. And we liked our freedom and we didn't do anything to disappoint her to lose it.
Gotcha.
And so I'm trying to do more of that with my son, and it's really hard because you just worry 24/7.
Yeah, I get that.
So-
I want to talk a little bit about being in rehab. When someone comes into Brookdale and they're like, I want to get better. I want to feel better. I want to do better for my family. I want to be there for my kids. What's the first thing that happens in that process to recovery? You know?
So when you come into Brookdale, you go through the detox program.
Okay.
And that is different for everybody. It really depends what you're on, what you need. Are you severe alcoholic? It depends. And that's
Okay.
the one good thing about Brookdale is they tailor the treatment to the person and the problem.
Gotcha. Nice.
So let's just say you come in, you're in detox for 4 or 5 days,
Okay.
The minute you come in, you have a case manager.
Okay.
You have a clinician, a nursing staff. And our, our counselors are either working on their master's level or have master's level.
Okay.
And so you're never kind of alone in the process, right? Because you going through detox, sure, well, God, what's next? What am I expecting? I feel like crap, There's always somebody there that is going to help you. The case managers, which to me, their job is unbelievable. When you come in, they take care of any pending litigation you may have legally. Set things up to make sure that, look, you're going to be here for the, 30-day stay, the 28-day stay, however long. And, JoJo's taking your dog out, your trash is going out on Wednesdays. Just, things are in place. Your only sole job is to get better when you're
Gotcha.
here. The whole world outside of here is rooting for you to get better. Don't worry about the outside. Let's worry about you and your recovery. So the case managers, like I said, take care of those day-to-day things for each
Okay.
individual patient. And then when you're leaving, the case managers, as well as the clinicians, as well as our recreational therapists, because one thing about Brookdale, when you go there, we have a recreational center, you saw.
Yes.
You are going to do recreation.
Yes.
It's
I wanted
either,
to take a lap in the pool.
right, it's going to be swimming, it's going to be hiking, it's going to be, you saw our exercise equipment, they do all kinds of art therapy, they do all of this.
Okay.
And let's just say you leave there and you really like yoga. Hey, I never did yoga before, but wow, that really, clears my head. Well, when you leave, the recreational therapists make sure, okay, here's where you're going. There's the gym that has the yoga classes at this time that you want. They try to make sure you stay in a routine. And they try to make sure that when you're leaving that you have, we're just the beginning. You may need sober living. Maybe you can't go back to mom's house because, dad's an alcoholic and it's you
Right, and
can't
it's a
do it.
trigger.
So
Absolutely.
maybe, you're going to go, like I said, sober living, or you're going to go have an IOP, or you're going to make sure you see this therapist, 5 days a week. Maybe you're going to come out and you have a pending litigation, so you don't know legally what's going to happen. So
Gotcha.
we just try to make sure that the fit when you go is the best case scenario. And also, we have a really strong alumni program. It basically runs itself with
Okay.
meetings. It's just wonderful. So when you leave Brookdale, you don't have to disconnect from Brookdale.
Right.
It's a family. It really is a family environment, and you're not in the drug and alcohol counseling and mental health
Yeah.
counseling if you don't care about people. So these clinicians and how hard they work, and how they just you pray. You want that person to really just you want a
Make it.
success story for all the
Exactly.
time and effort that you're putting into it. Geez, I'm sitting here talking. I forget your initial question.
No, that's okay. That's
Oh,
totally
you were
okay.
talking about Brookdale. Like, what's it like? What when you come in?
Well, I mean, you actually explained, the process, and you did answer the question about, what you go through and who's there, your support post.
Right.
I tend to believe that a lot of times the success story is because they had a strong support system.
Yeah. And we have a family program.
Okay.
I mean, Sharon runs that, and that's important too because your family's going through this.
Absolutely.
It's so much more than just I'm going into rehab. I'm going to come out. I'm not going to have a drink or a drug for 28 days, and I'm going to be okay. No, there's more. There's more to that addiction.
Yeah.
And you need to have counseling. You need to make sure you can get yourself to a meeting.
Gotcha.
And you need all of these things to be successful. And I work with people that are, almost 40 years sober. I work with people that are 10 years sober. I work with people that are 5 years sober. And they know. They've been there. They've been through it. They've done it. And they know what every day is a new day. And
Absolutely.
you really have to realize that can't just happen overnight, and you need to do things outside of rehab to really get to the place you want to be at.
And it's work. It's work. Because every day, like you said, every day's a new day. That means there's a new challenge.
You don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
Exactly. You're exactly right. You just don't know. So you have to be the best you can be as much as you possibly can. And sometimes I fail a lot. I'm talking to you honestly about being a parent. How sometimes I question. We've all had sleepless nights over, did I do the right thing or didn't I, right? And you wouldn't be normal if you didn't. If you walk around thinking that you just know everything and know how to do
and it's
it.
all hunky-dory.
Guess what? You're living in la la land.
Yeah.
And I think that, one thing back to the women, we're doing like full circle here. I think women recognize that more than men. I do.
Do you find that women tend to struggle a little bit more with just getting back into their day-to-day than men? Or do you find that maybe it's kind of the same, or?
It really depends on what your day-to-day is.
Okay.
I think that's an individual approach.
Okay.
There's success, men and women. A lot of times, maybe when you are away and you are in rehab, and even though we have the best accommodations, you've been there, like it's beautiful. And
Resort, like,
literally, you miss your family. You miss certain things about the way things maybe used to be.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a fresh start when you come out. You know what? I'm going to start helping out more.
Yeah.
I didn't spend enough time with my kid. I'm going to make sure I do that. Those type of things. That's what you can hope, right? When you're getting clean and sober and getting therapy while you're doing it.
Right.
And getting to the root of some issues, dealing with them. Because I think once you deal with some maybe root issues, I really do feel that recovery then
Tangible.
is really tangible.
Yes.
You know?
I also think too, part of that is just knowing that a setback on a bad day doesn't equate failure.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I
Right.
think a lot of times people think you go to rehab and you come out of rehab and everything is supposed to be, I am healed. Thank you, Jesus. We are good. I had a bad day. I had a drink. Now I had another drink. Now I had a bad week. And then I had a relapse.
Yeah.
And so now, oh, well, what was the point? It didn't work the first time, so why am I going to do it again? When that's not necessarily the case. It's sort of like riding the bike. You know, you may not get it the first time, you may not get it the second time, third time you're going to fall off and roll over into the fire hydrant, you know, whatever the case may be. But you don't stop trying.
So it's funny that you say this because, you know, I told you, like, I'm not a clinician. I don't.
Right.
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 One of my first questions when I went to go tour, I was like, well, like, what's a good success rate with rehabilitation centers? Like, what, tell me. And they're like, you know, it's a great question because that's very hard to say. What is a success rate? Somebody could come out of there, they could, you know, relapse, but they know the tools to get back on and get to a meeting, and maybe it's less and less and less. So they say, well, great question, Tarah. We know the success is what we can teach you, the tools that we can do to help you, but the best of us are going to have a slip up.
Exactly.
And some people come out and they're, I mean, our alumni, there's some that they're still clean and sober.
Yeah.
Some, you know, some are not. Some have slipped, some have come back, some are back on the good way. What worries me, especially with the overdose, is that sometimes they go back and they do the same dose they did,
And it hits them harder than it hit the
and they
first
die.
time. Yeah.
And they die. Their body can't handle it. That's extremely scary.
And that must be very difficult for your team at Brookdale. You know, one of my fears and one of the things that I kind of felt growing up was this sense of guilt. When my brother passed, and I was like, well, there was nothing I could do.
Yeah.
Or was there? You know, and I mean, even though I was 9, 10, 11,
Yeah.
you know, there was
You
nothing I
shouldn't
could
be carrying
do.
that weight on your shoulders,
Right,
right?
but you know, we always kind of feel like maybe if I could have ran some kind of intervention, you know,
But you didn't
maybe
even
that
know
would
that
have happened.
existed then.
This is true.
That's what I'm saying,
is
right?
true.
Like it's something that if you know, we can all say, boy, if I knew then what I know now, right?
Right.
So what you're doing to change the lives for people is this is what you're doing. You're helping spread this word. You're helping if people have an issue that you can share outlets for them to go to. You can give them recommendations. You can give them support groups. So you're actually helping the 9-year-old you right now by what you're currently doing. And if it was around when we were growing up, we didn't know it.
Right.
And I can say that honestly. You wouldn't go to your guidance counselor and talk about, well,
Absolutely
my
not.
brother is laying with a crack pipe, right? Today, you would.
Right. Absolutely.
And you would be okay, like, I don't know what to do. I'm so worried, you know? So that's what I'm saying. Like, being educated and the things that they're trying to teach in the schools and just even, like I said, metamorphosis, what you're trying to help women do. This is what is going to help us hopefully get out of this pandemic problem or be a good part of it so that that cycle doesn't keep repeating down the family line.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up metamorphosis because I have some great news I want to share with everybody. So we are actually launching and have launched our Rebirth, okay, our Rebirth Program of the Poconos, a Rebirth Project of the Poconos,
Okay.
which is a project that works with women who are coming home from rehab with support services and groups and just being a addressing their needs while they're going through their long-term recovery process after rehab. And one of the great things I love about it is that it, first of all, fits so well in what we do at Metamorphosis,
Right. Sounds it.
but also too, it gave us a chance to be able to be the wind beneath someone's wing at one of their most critical times.
Okay.
You know, when a woman comes to you in her most vulnerable moment and says, I have nothing left to lose.
Oh gosh, right.
The only place I can go is up. You know, that's a moment for us to stop and say, what can we do to help you? I got your hand. Tell me your story. No judgment. You know, the sofa's there. Nobody's going to say anything to you. If you want to sit there quiet, you can. If you want to talk about it, you can. If you want to write about it, you could do that too. You know, but bottom line is, this is your place of sanctuary. This is your place of peace. This is your place to have somewhere to go where you can just be you.
And maybe have a clear decision
Exactly.
making process.
Exactly. And I'm looking forward to working with you and Brookdale, you know, on working with the women in the community to offer, you know, those services to them and be able to say, hey, you know, we're here on Saturday. If you can't get anybody at Brookdale, you know, Metamorphosis is here so that you can come have a cup of coffee and a conversation with us.
Right.
You
So
know?
what's the Rebirth project though? So you're going to be the basically, like you said, the wind under the wing.
Right. So we will be offering support services.
Okay.
First, our offices is set up so that there's a safe space
Okay.
for them. Many, we know, of course, a lot of times that along with the addiction, there are other underlying issues. You know, so we want to address some of those underlying issues also,
Okay.
so that we can reduce the amount of stress that they're, you know, they're already dealing with the stress of, now I have to get back to my life. You know, but what does that entail? You know, so we want to find out what that entails.
And what's their situations,
Exactly.
right? Okay.
You know, what your needs are. You know, do you have food insecurities? Well, we can help you with that. You know, is it a matter of clothing? We can help you with that. You know, are you maybe looking to go back to work, or you can't go to that job, but you need to refresh your skills because you were away from work for a little bit? So we can help with that with our
Yeah.
job readiness program. You know, we have mental health services, just if you need to speak with someone, you know, just to say, hey, I'm having a rough day. You know, not necessarily that I want to drink or anything else, but I'm just having a rough day and I need somebody just to sit with. You know, well, we are making services available so that women will have that option to come here for that. I walk with my phone. Okay, I don't have it now. Don't judge me. But for the most part, I walk with my phone, you know, 24/7, and a lot of my clients do call me at random because I say, hey, I give them my business card. I say, this is my private number.
Yeah.
When you call, Charice is going to answer that phone, you know, and when I answer that phone, I'm not answering because I want to rack up numbers. I'm answering because I know she might be in a position where she's like, I absolutely need to talk to somebody because I'm not going to get through the night.
So I think that's wonderful. You know, and everyone's in different circumstances. I mean, when I was growing up, I had a village. I had my aunt, my grandmother, my mom. They were always next door. My grandmother lived with us for a little while. Like, it was always that little village, you know?
Right.
I know so many people that have moved to the Poconos that it's just them. They
Gotcha.
have nobody.
Yeah.
So the kids crying, you know, things are going bad. They don't even have a family member to say, oh my God, can you come and help me? Someone, you know, my one child's sick. I got to get him to the doctor. I have no one to watch the other child. I mean, that's something that I never had to experience. I've always had help.
Got you.
And I know so many women that maybe I could see them calling you like, look, I just need 5 minutes. Can I come there? Like, I've got
Yeah.
5 minutes. I need to clear my head, you know? So that could make the world of difference in someone's life. That could change the way they go back into their home and handle a situation. Could change their life. So I'm really happy that you're in the borough of Stroudsburg, too, by the way.
Yes. We started in preparation for Rebirth, but in lieu of all of our other programming that we offer to the women that come in, we started coffee and conversations, which is different than cafe conversations.
That's Saturday mornings,
right?
right?
Coffee and conversations is a 2-hour respite self-care program.
Okay.
Strictly for women, no men, no children, just all women. Just to come in and be able to do what they want to do. It's 2 hours for them to, if they need to just sit and read a book, fine. If
Right.
you want to talk with other women, connect, that's fine. We do coffee, tea, juice. We give a breakfast, continental breakfast and
nice.
everything. Yeah, and then what we do is at the last half hour, we do what we call mini workshop, and all the workshops are centered around some sort of self-care.
Okay.
You
give them techniques at home, maybe how to deal with something. Or...
give them techniques. So every week is different. We had one week where we did breathing and meditation. We had one week where someone came in and did a presentation on living in a chemically free house. Ridding your home of certain chemicals because it changes your body chemistry. It changes your mood. It affects how your hair grows and what your skin looks like.
Yeah.
All that. We have someone coming in doing something on aromatherapy.
Oh my God, the lavender with my son.
Yeah.
When he was little, like
Yeah.
lavender.
And we never
Conk out. I was like, dumping a lavender on him.
And you never really realize how things you don't think about
Right.
affect you.
Right.
Hence the colors in here. I chose the colors simply because they're calming.
Oh, definitely. This is such a comfortable room.
Yeah, they're calming, where other colors, like maybe a bright pink or a yellow, will have you bouncing off the walls and kind of keep your mental level up here,
Bright pink would make me angry.
I was like, I had a room in my house. My house at one time was pink and hunter green. Those were my colors. And I painted my living room this bright pink. And when I say I would come home and I would be angry. And I couldn't understand what it was.
Was it the bright pink?
It was the pink, yes. But
I told
it was
you.
like every time I sat in the living room, I was like, and I just couldn't sit.
Like, you're too happy.
Right? Could you calm down a little bit, just a little bit,
Exactly. That's really funny.
Yeah. So I've learned to live with. I don't really like beige too much because beige to me is too, put me to sleep.
Yeah.
But gray is like. I feel very feminine with gray, very sexy.
I think I fell in love with gray like maybe 10 years ago. Like
Yeah.
every time I see someone's like, there's a couple rooms in our house that are gray, and I know it's popular, but man, there's just something about it. The gray and the white together, it's so pretty,
Yes.
I love it. No, I love it. You
Yes.
did a wonderful, amazing job here.
I
So.
appreciate that. And,
You're
we invite all of you to come down and visit, the Metamorphosis headquarters here at 804 Sarah Street, in Stroudsburg, where you might see Mayor Tarah Probst having lunch with me,
In a couple minutes.
Exactly. But before we actually wrap up the show, I just wanted to, I don't like to leave opening the bottle and, letting all the problems, flow without giving some resources and references to, what can we do if someone is experiencing issues with their family members, or they, suspect that there might be an addiction or something like that, what can they do? Who can they possibly call, reach out to in our Stroudsburg area or Monroe County, to get some help to see, where to go
Sure.
next?
So absolutely, there's a couple different answers to that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if someone is very bad, you want to call 911. If
Gotcha.
if they're in danger or they're going to harm somebody else, or always 911. And
Right.
because the appropriate actions will be taken. If so, for example, if it's an overdose, obviously Narcan is available. All these different things. So I just want to say, if you are in fear or think someone's going to get hurt, yourself or others, you call 911.
Gotcha.
Okay, because that 911, they will dispatch, whether it's ambulance or police, just to make sure. If there's multiple places. I mean, Brookdale, for example, is brookdalerecovery.com. If you think that you have a family member that you'd like to inquire about, call there. They'll tell
Right.
you, well, here's the process, here's what we have to do.
Gotcha.
If now Brookdale takes Blue Cross Blue Shield, Geisinger,
Okay.
Cigna, I believe, Aetna too is
Okay.
any day,
Okay.
but it's private insurance.
Okay.
Now, if you call Brookdale and we can't take your insurance, we don't
Gotcha.
say good luck, right?
Gotcha.
Because the people that run Brookdale care,
Okay.
and a lot of the people that run Brookdale were in the same situation.
Okay.
So we try to find, okay, just give us a couple minutes. There could be a bed at Pyramid. There could be a bed at Alina Lodge. I mean, there's multiple places that a person can go to.
Okay.
We don't want to leave anybody high and dry. And I think that's one of the things I love about Brookdale. Look, just because we can't take you, we need to get you help, or your family member help. But we have intervention services too. So if you know someone that wants to have an intervention, we have professionals on staff that do that. Get the whole process together, the family, the intervention, get them into recovery. So you don't have to know what to do. The experts do, if that makes sense. So it's a
Gotcha.
phone call away. We have the Monroe County, Monroe Carbon Pike, mental health services, drug and alcohol services.
Okay.
What I'm going to do for you, I have a whole, and I'm going to make sure you have copies of them.
Okay.
I have trifolds
Okay.
for every single number in Monroe County, the county agency services.
Oh, marvelous. Okay, that would be
Honestly,
great.
from like swallowing, my child swallowed Windex,
Yeah,
to overdose or mental health or any of
Okay.
that. I'm going to drop off trifolds so that you
Great.
can have them for people that come in here.
Thank you so much. I would appreciate
You're welcome.
that.
But Monroe County has a lot of services, and they're busy,
Okay.
but they're there for that. There's mental health, there's substance abuse. Like I said, there's also, private practices that help with this. So we have sober living houses, in the area, women and men.
And what's a sober living house for people who don't know?
A sober living house is when you go through rehab, and an example, I can't go back to Philadelphia. I can't go back to my family's house. I'm going to be in that same crowd and drugs and alcohol. I'm not saying
Right.
I'm just giving an
No,
example.
I get-
No
I get
disrespect
it.
to Philadelphia. I just
Right.
use that. No, I know, but you know what I
Right.
mean? Somebody is going to say, oh, what, in Philadelphia? That's not what I meant. I'm just giving an example. Okay, Strasbourg, okay? So anyway, they need a place. They want to
Yeah.
stay sober. They want to continue to, they want to look for a job. They want to go to meetings. So sober living houses are affordable, that you can, get into these kind of like a group home,
Okay.
get your money saved up, get a job. Some of them make you, I don't want to say make you, but, require you. So I guess it is make you. You need to at least go to a meeting a day, or have some sort of, even if it's to a church or some sort of community service or something that's helping you internally.
Gotcha.
And so spiritual. And, there's 2 sober living houses that I know of in the Poconos, Nehemiah, one for women, one for men. They're both in the Poconos, and Linda Diver is wonderful. And
I met her about 2 weeks ago.
She's great.
And she came in, and yeah, we had a wonderful time, and I loved
Her story.
program, and yeah, and her
story.
story, and I was like, wow. I said, kindred spirits, me, you, Tara, and I'm telling
Yeah.
you,
There-
a lot of salads, Tara. A lot
I
of
know.
salads.
Well, and then there's like Bloom and the Jasmine House for Women. This is in Bangor.
Yes.
That's a 2-year program for women, and it's rent free, and it really helps women. But it's a program, but
Yeah, I heard it's intense too.
it's intense.
Yeah.
But women come out empowered and better, and it's a lovely home too.
Yeah.
I've been there. There's Malibu Ranch for women. There's other rehabilitations that actually have the children, like
Okay.
to try to help them become better parents as they're going through rehab as well.
Yes.
So there's a lot of different options.
Okay. Awesome. And support services for families, for their support systems.
Right.
You
So
know.
like Brookdale has that. Most drug and alcohol rehabilitation centers have that.
Okay.
To what extent, I don't know.
Gotcha.
I know Brookdale's is one of the best
Okay.
with the family program. It's
Okay.
really amazing, and the Sharon, the woman that runs it, is amazing. So, yeah, I can't speak. I work there, so of course, but I am still there because I
Yeah.
love it so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And how
And this
hard
is a passion of yours.
It is. And when I first became mayor and I saw the numbers on overdoses, and you just see it's a pandemic, and I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about the opioid
Yeah.
crisis was a pandemic
Absolutely.
prior to the COVID-19
Right.
pandemic.
COVID just didn't help. me.
COVID made it worse.
Yeah. Well, everybody had to
so-
stay home now.
And it's just sad.
Yeah.
It's sad because it could happen to anybody that we love or care about.
Absolutely.
And it could happen to you, and it can happen to your family, and it can happen to your best friend or your best friend's family. Don't ever think it won't, because it could. And you're going to beat yourself up. What did I do wrong? Why did this happen? Don't.
Yeah.
We're right back to the beginning of our conversation, aren't we? Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
it
But it
is-
always comes full circle, but
does.
it's always good. I think we made a major step today just by talking about it and bringing awareness to it, and just kind of letting people know that, hey, there's no shame in you wanting to help your loved one or even yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what, Charice, I'm going to say this one thing. We need more mental health services.
Yes, I agree.
The federal government cut that money in the 80s and really kind of, when I went to school in Wilkes-Barre, I went to college up there, and August 31st, 1988, first day, freshman year of college, and I just saw, people walking around the courthouse square talking to themselves. Like we didn't have that in East Stroudsburg where I grew up.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? Oh, they closed the state hospital, and basically said, have at it, good luck,
Yeah.
right? We need mental health services. We desperately need them in Monroe County. We desperately need mental health services as well.
Gotcha.
Our county mental health services are phenomenal. They work so hard. Oh my God, they work so hard.
Yeah. And it's
We need
so
help.
short-staffed.
If you go to any of the prison board meetings or just look at the jail, I mean, there's public
Yeah.
records. We have, at one point close to 400 inmates. I forget the percentage. It was high. It was like 78%, 80% weren't even from Monroe County.
Wow.
And then when you look at that percentage, drugs and alcohol and mental health,
Okay.
that's in
Yeah.
the prison.
Yeah.
Now look, prison's for people that commit crimes. I
Crimes.
understand.
Yeah.
Mental health, so
They
the
can't control
poor
that.
people
Yeah.
that work at the jail and the poor counselors, they're overwhelmed. I mean, there's some serious mental health there, not just a little, oh, I'm bipolar or oh, I have anxiety. We're talking serious mental health that I can't even get into it. I wouldn't do that. That's disrespectful. But things that, yeah, these poor people need help.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
More than what the jail can give them, more than what. So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
need these services, and we need them desperately.
And then when they come out, to be quite honest, there's no one following them when they're released from jail to say, "Hey, let's see if we can find you someone to help you with your mental health issues." Is again, opening the doors, going,
Being
"Good
released,
luck."
and they're being released into our community.
Exactly.
And
With
this is
nowhere to
every
go.
jail. I
Yeah.
mean, so reentry programs, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and they do such a great job at the jail, and with the staff they have, they really do. They work so hard. I mean, I, I feel for them.
Yeah. And I think that's why I believe it's crucial for us, organizations like Metamorphosis to, be able to set up those strategic alliances with other
Yeah.
community-based organizations to try to, find a way to offer a comprehensive program for someone in that situation.
You could be the warm handoff.
Absolutely.
The woman sitting on this couch
Absolutely.
could say, my husband or boyfriend is a drug addict and I don't know how to get out of this situation.
Yes.
You could be the warm hand off the crutch to getting that person help.
Help. Exactly.
And that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah,
And it really is.
And that's why, Rebirth is one of our that's going to be one of our anchor programs, just making sure that people get connected with the services that they need. I'm not saying that we can do everything here, because I can't. I'm only one person.
You're powerful, though.
Thank you. I like that.
So is your staff.
You
do more than you think.
Thank you. But I just want to be sure that, instead of saying, well, no, that's not what we do. I'm sorry, you'll have to find somewhere else. I will find out how to refer them to someone else. I'll get on the phone and make a call and say, hey, listen, I have a client here who needs X, Y, and Z. Do you know where I could send them? Who can I talk to?
Right.
Just because if you know someone cares, it really makes a difference.
Absolutely. And, we have wonderful organizations all over Monroe County, but in the borough of Stroudsburg. I mean, I can tell you the different church groups that, feed, clothe, school supplies. Right. And we've talked about it. I've introduced you to a lot of them. We have a really wonderful community that cares, and that's one thing that we're definitely lucky. I mean, you were in, look, Monroe County cares. I know that.
Yeah.
I'm speaking for the borough that I represent right now.
Gotcha.
And I can tell you that there's not one time that I haven't called a different organization here that hasn't helped or offered to help or wanted to do something for the community. And I know that you're making those partnerships too. So,
absolutely.
We're lucky, and we benefit from having Charice Sanders and Metamorphosis in Strasbourg Borough. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Well, I think more so than anything, the best way to make your job easier is if I'm eyes and ears on the ground. The days you can't be,
I rely on my constituents for that.
To come and say, hey, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, this is what we need, and this is what they're asking for. And I think if we had more relationships like this, where we can have a conversation without it having to be so regimented and
right.
Senatorial.
I mean, no, and look, I mean, I'm running for the House of Representatives in the 189th. I'm the mayor, and I just tell the truth.
Yes.
And, some people might watch us and be like, oh God, she's, well, she's a horrible mother. Look at, no, it's real. This is what people are going through every single day they wake up. It's like real issues, because we've all, what's the word I'm looking for? With real issues for real everyday people.
Right.
And these issues
Exactly.
exist. And,
Exactly.
One of the things I always say, it's never me alone.
Right.
Never. I
Right.
never say, well, I did this and I did that. Never. Can't do it without help. And I learned that a long time ago from my village growing up.
Gotcha.
You need your help. And
This is true.
my constituents and the people that I work with, they're my help. And so nobody should be ashamed or embarrassed to walk in this door and tell you they need
Exactly.
help and can you help me with this?
Exactly.
Because it's a two-way
Two-way street.
And
Because without them, there is no me. I actually
And
said that
then-
at the ribbon cutting. I was like, without you all, there is
yeah,
no me.
and then you're going to turn that person's world around, and they're going to help somebody, and it's just it's
Exactly.
a domino effect.
Pay it forward.
I always like to think that good outweighs evil.
Absolutely.
So you just got to keep thinking that way, and yeah. So
Awesome.
widen the screen, don't have a closed mind about things, and understand that just because, you wouldn't do it that way or this doesn't make you right. And I've learned that, just because it's something I wouldn't do or something that I wouldn't say or something that I would say or do, doesn't mean I'm right.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm wrong. It's what works for me.
you. Absolutely.
And so more people need to just, expand their mind.
Yes.
It's not black and white. There's always gray. And I learned that from law school, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Some people are like, nope, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then you start reading cases and you think, well, God, no, it's gray. Like you could
Yeah.
make two different
arguments on that
arguments.
point.
And so everything to me really is gray. I'll lean more towards shade for a decision. But, the person walking in these doors, never going to judge them. You don't know what they just went through,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I think that's key.
Well, I am so grateful you came in today.
Well, thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
so
me.
much for,
And I got rained on, so excuse,
That's all right. You still look beautiful.
I have on my St. Patrick's Day, though, green.
Look
Well, it's
at
actually an
that.
olive
That's
green,
right.
but I think it doesn't
Green
matter.
is green.
It's green.
Green is green.
Yeah. It's not the Kelly green.
And we wish you much luck on
Thank
your
you.
campaign.
Thank you.
And everything.
And I wish you the best. And,
Thank
I'm here for
you.
you. And, I'm part of the 450 project for the feminine hygiene
Whoop, whoop.
products. And that's something else I didn't learn until, maybe 2 years ago
Right.
about all the number of young women in school, teens, who don't go to school because they don't have feminine hygiene products.
Exactly.
And, there's not even help with that. I mean, even if you are on assistance,
Yeah.
it doesn't pay for that.
Yeah.
And my God, we're women. Like, we didn't ask for this, I mean,
Exactly.
there's a reason we can have babies.
And
And
I love to tell people, they're like, well, they get food stamps. Well, food stamps doesn't pay for everything.
no,
It
absolutely.
only buys food, but if my dishes are not clean and I can't wash the pots or the plates that we're going to eat out of or the cups we're going to drink out of, then I'm still,
But that really bugs me, right? That people say, well, they get food stamps. Well, I am born a woman. They, whoever's saying that, you're a man. You don't even know what this is like.
I don't have a clue.
You have no clue.
clue.
So shut your mouth.
Absolutely.
That's what I would say.
Absolutely, and all the other things that go along with, it's just there are gender specific issues for women that men don't have a clue and are not taken into consideration when laws are being passed and conversations are being had. Those things are not taken into consideration because they're not women to go through it or know.
I always say, I don't want the government in your doctor's office or your gun cabinet.
Exactly.
Stay out of my life.
Yeah.
And I'll stay out of yours.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
let us all have the freedom to make our own decisions.
Exactly.
In that way.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important.
Because you're already taking 10% of my paycheck. So I'm just saying, isn't that enough? Well, we thank you all for joining us in the cafe today. It was a pleasure. Thank you again,
I had a
Mayor
great
Probst.
time. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, then we're going to have you back again for something else. I'm not sure what it is, but I'll find it.
I
Okay?
love it. I love it. And thank you. Thanks for letting me be honest.
Absolutely.
And thank you for letting me talk about my job at Brookdale.
Absolutely.
And understanding that I'm not a clinician. And
Right.
I just know
Absolutely.
what they do and how hard they work. And I really do appreciate you letting me talk about how wonderful it is.
Well, as myself, I'm a nurse by profession.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I do tell my patients is sometimes the ones that are given the best care are not the clinicians. It's the families that are taking care of those people when they leave the care of the clinician.
Yeah.
So the best thing for us to do is be able to educate everyone. Not only the ones that can afford to go to school and get the degrees and then pass on the information to family, but educate the family too, because the more educated your family is, the more educated the support post is, the stronger the support post is, the better of a chance that person has.
And equal and just educate them equally. Let them know,
Exactly.
give them the same experience, same
Exactly.
here's ways that we can help you, to everybody,
Exactly.
and the world's going to be a better place.
Absolutely.
So
All right. Well,
I
you
love
guys
her.
have a good one. Thanks. You guys have a good one, and we'll see you next week in Cafe Conversations.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
A cafe conversation. It's a cafe conversation in the ladies' room. A cafe conversation in the ladies' room. A cafe conversation in the ladies' room. A cafe conversation.